So, so I need to create here variables manually, and then variable type should be this data type, right? This business object, right?
Yes.
Complex type. Yeah.
Okay, okay, sure. Okay, I think I directly inserted these variables instead of process. I directly did it in the human service. So that's the reason why I'm not able to bind it there. So I created a object here, and then I mapped that business object to here. I binded that to here. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Okay. All right. So, Pasha, I saw
Yeah.
your email, but
Yeah.
that screenshot is not enough to understand what is the error. So,
Can I show you my screen? Can I share the screen?
yeah. Share your screen. There's some issue with the DB2 admin installation.
Okay.
So, is it the
Yes.
same system you are using where you had installed IBM BPM previously?
No, no, it's a new installation anyhow. It's a new installation. I mean, there is no previous installation. It's a new OS.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just- Okay. So yeah,
Can you
you
show me
can
the
see
error?
this is the error.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you please copy that location if you can see? Read the log file. Let's see. Yeah. Copy it till Copy it till 235913. Yes. Yeah. Okay. bpm config dot sysout. Yeah. So yes. Can you open right click and open with notepad? Okay. Can you scroll down right below?
Yeah.
Command failed.
Yeah, this will create my own data.
An authorization ID cannot grant a privilege or authority to itself.
Take it right.
Yeah, you can take it right. Okay. Try once more. If it doesn't, what is the Windows? What is the operating system you are using?
It's Windows 11.
Windows 11. Okay. Just one thing here. I was using Windows 11,
Mm-hmm.
and I had installed IBM BPM, this BAW, and
Okay.
somehow after I shut down my system again, I saw that that IBM BPM again.
Mm-hmm.
I had to reinstall. The server became corrupt, so I had to
Mm-hmm.
downgrade my operating system to Windows 10. Okay.
Okay.
So anything as such happens, then in that case you need to downgrade. So this error is not for your Windows. This is something for the DB2. So try once more. Try the installation once more. If it doesn't work, then in that case
Okay. Okay. Fine.
we have to think
Okay,
about
Rahul.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys. So let me share my screen. All right. So till yesterday, what we have done, we have created the employee human service, and we had created the coach where we added some coach views and had mapped them. And one of the significant things that we did yesterday was the coding part, where we populated the type of leaf, list of name value pair, and also we learned like how to instantiate a business object in IBM BPM. Now, this was the employee task all about. Now, if I go to the manager task, the manager would be seeing the same details but in read only mode, right? And the rest of the details like manager remarks and the approve and reject buttons, this would be completely, editable, where the manager would be taking some action and also would add some remarks, right? So, how to make a coach view read only, right? So, editable, read only, this all these things are called the visibility properties in IBM BPM for a coach view. So today, while implementing the manager task, we are going to learn this thing, like what are the different visibility properties that we have in IBM BPM. And definitely, if we have some time, then after we complete the manager task, we are going to run the process and see how the tasks are getting created, how the instances are getting created, what is an instance rather, what is a task. So all these things we are going to see today. And after that, again, if we have time, then we'll discuss about dynamic visibility. And in case if we are not able to start dynamic visibility today, then Monday we are going to start dynamic visibility, data change, and validation. These three things we are going to learn. So let's open the process leave application. So here we have the employee task, and here we have the manager task. Now, manager task here that we will be creating, we can create it from here. Like I said, you see here some human service has already been attached. This is a dummy human service, guys. Okay, whenever in future, say if you're developing some process, you're designing some process, in case your human service is not ready, then at least to run your process you can bind this default UI human service. This comes with the UI toolkit, and automatically you can map this human service to any user task in your process. Okay, this is just for your dummy human service. Ideally you have to replace this with a proper human service. So I would create it from here, but since we did this yesterday, so this time I would create the human service from here. So client side human service. Here I would give a name, say manager task CSHS. CSHS stands for client side human service. Okay, I forgot to share the differences between heritage human service and client side human service yesterday because of some work at office. So I will share it today. And Jay, I have shared the installables with you today morning. So
Yeah,
you can do the installation tomorrow. Okay.
sure,
You have the recording with you, so see the recording and you can do it by yourself.
sure.
So now, guys, like I said yesterday, whenever you're creating a human service, especially a client-side human service, so this option intended for use on multiple devices needs to be checked. Always, it has to be enabled. The next option says use as a nested service. Now, what is a nested service? Nested service is basically say I create a client-side human service, and from that client-side human service, I want to call another client-side human service. So the second client side human service which I'm trying to call, that becomes a nested service. Okay. So if I want to create a human service which would be part of another human service, then I would call this as a nested service. Okay. But a human service which you want to add on the user task of your process, that can never be a nested service. So any human service you are creating, to map it directly to a user task in the process layer, you should not enable this option. Okay. In case you want to call this human service from another human service, then in that case you should enable this option. Okay. So now I click on finish. This would create the human service for me. Now all the variables and everything, guys, I need to add manually because I did not create this human service through activity wizard. That your start event, coach, and end event will always be there. Whenever you create a human service, by default, this is always created for you. So what we need to add is variables. So it's completely blank. So we need to add them. Now, for a manager task, for a manager human service, what kind of variable I should add?
Input.
Approve, reject button, and
No. What kind of variables I should add? Input or output?
Input.
input.
Input. Okay. So I would take the entire object over here as an input. I would also need an output, guys, okay? But we'll discuss this later. Why do we need an output variable? We need the same variable as an output also. Why do we need it? We'll discuss it right at the end after we discuss all about this visibility and everything, okay? Because we'll go back to the process layer again, because there we need to run the process and see. So before that, we'll discuss about why do we need an output variable here. All right. Now, I said you guys yesterday that if we have more than more than one button in a coach, then in that case, I should need some variables to map those buttons, right? And what kind of variables I would need? Boolean variables. Now, these variables, considering the value of the variable, like if approve is true, then in that case, manager action would be I would populate that with uh, approved. If reject is true, then in that case I would populate in the manager action as rejected. So in this case, I don't need any input or output. I would just need two private variables. One would be approve, which will be boolean, and the other would be reject, which would also be a boolean, right? Now we'll go back to the coach now. We'll go to the coach, and you can see here nothing is added in the coach except a button which you can see at the back which says OK. By default, that always gets added, a button. But apart from that, everything is empty. We don't have anything, any layout is not there. So we can start with the default coach. That is, from the basics, you drag the layout and you do the design. Or if you have any kind of template, then in that case you would create a template here. Okay, we would see a session where I would show you that what happens in the complete BPM project if you have multiple user tasks, okay, where you have to design multiple coaches, right? So what we usually do in a project, we try to design a template or a layout, and that layout we reuse in multiple coaches, okay. And for this we need to learn dynamic visibility first, because using dynamic visibility, because of the same layout we are using in the employee as well as in the manager. So obviously for the employee, manager remarks and approve and reject button will not be there, right? So I have to hide that from the employee. Similarly, for the manager, all the employee details should be in read-only mode. So I need to make it read-only whenever it is for the manager. Okay, so same layout I'll be using, but I'll be hiding few for the employee, and I would be making some read-only for the manager. So how to do this? We do this using dynamic visibility, which we implement through a coach view. Okay, so I will create a coach view, and I will create a layout using that, which I'm going to reuse in multiple coaches. Okay, so this session we'll see next week, as we have to learn dynamic visibility first. All right, so default coach will go with, in case you are using a template, so you can select it. Right now I cannot select anything over here because I don't have any template over here, so I would keep it as it is. And there is something called grid. So grid is like, that we are adding those layouts, right? Now if I select this, say 2 columns, so 2 grids will be created side by side, and both the grids will be vertical layout grids, which means that if you're adding the coach view, all those are placed in a vertical order. If they are the vertical layouts, they will be added in a vertical order. And then you can have 3 columns. You can have multiple columns also, and you can also add some header and footer. Okay, but better you always start with the default coach. In case you are creating a template or a layout, over there you can use a grid. That would look much more better. Okay, so let's start with the default coach. And now we'll again use those layouts. So I will just drag few layouts here. So I would need vertical layout. I will add two vertical layouts, and in the first vertical layout I'm going to add plain text like we were designing yesterday. This is the employee ID. Then we'll have employee name. All right, now guys, this in this coach we don't need a drop down, right? Because the employee has already selected the value from the drop down. We just need to show it to the manager. So we'll again add a text box, and this time we are going to map this text box with selected leave. Remember, selected leave was used to capture the final value. So if I just map that parameter with the text box, automatically the manager would be able to see the value which the employee has selected. So I would again drag a plain text, and this would be selected leave. Of course, my start date and end date, sorry, date time picker. Start date. I haven't mapped any code views yet, which I'll be doing later. Reason of leave. That is a text area. All right, now let's map these parameters one by one. Employee ID, employee name, selected leave, start date, end date, reason of leave. Right. Now we come to the manager part where we have the manager remarks and the manager action. So this we would add in a separate layout. Okay. So this vertical layout, just thinking whether we really need this. Yes, we need this. Okay. Let me just drag it out. So it's there inside this layout. So I will just drag it outside this layout. Yeah. And here, what I would do, I would add first again a text area. This would be the manager remarks. And I would do the binding with manager remarks parameter. And finally, this is a vertical layout. Now I would need two buttons. Now if I'm adding another button here, it will be added in a vertical order. But unfortunately, if I add another button, that would again be that would be again be in vertical order. So if whatever I add right now, everything will be in vertical order, right? But buttons, how can we keep them in vertical order? I should keep them in horizontal order, right? So what I would do, this is a vertical layout. I will add a horizontal layout inside. Okay. And in this horizontal layout, I'm going to add the buttons. So one of the button was already there. So I will just drag it below and keep it inside. And another button we need. Just rename them. Approve, reject, and need to map them. Yes, we need to map them with approve parameter. It's a boolean value, and also reject parameter, which would also be a boolean variable. Now, okay, let's make this configuration. Just try to make them a bit smaller. So width would be somewhere around 105. See how it looks like. Okay, it can be 100. A lot of configurations are there, and to be honest, I haven't gone through each and every configuration. There's something, we do some kind of POCs every time, and that time we come across, because this kind of trainings we don't get in office. So it's up to us that we need to learn them. So we have to, do multiple POCs and find out how these things are working. A lot of things have changed from before. Okay, later on we'll do this. All right, so approve, success, reject. All right, now, so we are done with adding all the code views, whatever we needed to add. Now we have to do something here. We have a layout at the top, which has employee ID, employee name, and everything, which are going to come from the employee task, whatever the employee is going to submit. So I need to make sure that the manager should not edit them, right? So I have to make this entire all these code views as read only, right? Now, how can I make it read only? Read only is, first of all, is one of the visibility properties that we have for a code view. Okay, so let's see how to get to the visibility property of a coach view. So like I said, always you click on a coach view, and then the properties of that coach view are visible below, and you see one of the property is visibility. Okay, let's click on visibility. Now here what we see something called source at the top, where we have three different types of sources, which can be a value, rule, or script. Okay, coming to value, this is important, most important thing is here is value. And we'll discuss about the different visibility properties that we have in IBM BPM first, and then we are going to see these three things. Okay, like what exactly these three things mean, like value, rule, and script, and how do we actually implement in case of a real-time project, that also we are going to discuss. Now here, if I click on this visibility, which we can see next to it, we have something called same as parent. It is basically a drop down with multiple visibility features. Okay, so we have same as parent, required, editable, read only, none, and hidden. Okay, let's understand one by one what are these visibility properties. Same as parent will come right at the end. Okay, we'll discuss right at the end on this one. Let's start with required. If I make a code view required, what would happen? A red asterisk mark will be added before the label of the code view. This is the employee ID, which you can see at the top. If I click on required, you see a red asterisk mark got added before the employee ID label. This clearly resembles that this particular code view or this particular field is a required field. We should not leave it empty. Now you might ask me that, Rahul, if I leave this empty right now, just making it by required, and if I try to submit the page, would it throw any error message? Unfortunately, no. For that, we need to implement something called validation. Okay, so validation logic we need to implement, then only it will work. This is just for visibility purpose, guys. Okay, just to make the end user understand that this field is a required field. Okay, that is the reason the term that we are using is visibility. It doesn't have any logic, but there are certain properties which you can use just to make some code views visible in a particular way. Okay, so like this is a required property. If I make a field as required, then any end user will understand this is a required field and we need to fill up this field. Okay, for the validation part we need to implement a separate logic for that. Okay, right, this is required. Next is editable. By default, whenever you are adding any coach view, by default it is editable. Okay, so if you want to make a field editable, then in that case you can select this one to make that field as editable. Okay, read only, just the opposite, which we are going to do or implement it here. If I make a field as read only, end users will not be able to edit any data for that field. Okay, so that is simple, read only. None and hidden, both are same. Okay, if I make a coach view here as none or hidden, the end user will not be able to see that coach view. Okay, it will be hidden from the end user, but of course there must be some difference, right? Both properties, how can they be same? I mean, instead we should have only one. Now if I make a field hidden, okay, listen to this very carefully. If I make a coach view as hidden, the browser makes sure that it will still allocate some memory for that coach view, which means there would be some space created for that coach view even if I'm not showing the coach view to the end user. Okay, I'll just repeat once again. If I make the employee ID coach view as hidden, it's true that the end user will not be able to see anything, but the browser will still allocate some memory, some space for this coach view, which means whenever the browser will load, whenever this coach will load in the browser, there would be a space which would be visible in place of employee ID. And if I use none, it is just the opposite. The browser will not allocate any memory or any space for this coach view, and it will look like that the employee name is the first coach view in the layout. Okay, so let me first show you as hidden. You'll understand. So I have made the employee ID field as hidden. Now if I run this human service, you see above employee name there is some space, right? That is the issue with hidden. Now just think, if you're making multiple fields hidden, say I want to hide start date or end date also, like I'm hiding employee ID, just think there will be spaces in between, so it will not look good, right? And moreover, this is a very simple course that we have designed. If you go for a banking project, okay, there would be multiple sections, multiple layouts will be there. So, and there can be some scenario like I was talking about dynamic visibility, that at times you need to hide something, at times you need to show something. And if you're using hidden for hiding something, just think if you have say multiple sections, say 5 sections are there, everywhere there is some space, right? And your browser is still making every time the effort is giving to load all those code views, although there, it is not showing it to the end user, but you know the browser has still, I mean the code view has still loaded, only that we are not able to see it. But if I'm making a code view as none, there would be no space allocated and the browser will not make any effort to load that code view. You see, now there is no space. So always use none. Do not use hidden, as none would, from the performance perspective of your coach, none visibility property is much better than your hidden. Okay, because in case of hidden, whatever coach views you have implemented in the coach, everything will load with the browser. Although it will not be visible, but still everything will load. But in case of none, you are actually removing that coach view from the memory of the browser. So always use none visibility property in case if you want to hide something. Okay, so this was about none and hidden. Any questions till now, guys, on any of the visibility properties? No. All right. Now we come to same as parent. Okay. Now we can define a parent-child relationship in a coach. Whenever you are adding the coach views, you can define the parent and child relationship between the coach views. Okay. How can we do that? Let's see this. This is a coach view text box. Employee name also is a text box, right? So all these things we have added text boxes, then we have start date, end date, all these are different coach views. Now where we have added them? We have added them in a layout. So in this case, layout is the parent and these are the child coach views. I hope we can understand the relationship properly because I'm saying this with an example where I have a layout which is the parent, and inside the layout I have kept the code views, which means all these code views which I have kept inside the layout, they are the child, and the parent layout, the layout is the parent, right? That's how we define a parent-child relationship in a coach. Now, if I make guys this entire layout as read only, and the properties of this employee id, employee name, and all the code views which are kept inside the layout are same as parent, which means it is now inheriting the property of the parent. Now if I run this manager task, you see all these code views inside the layout have automatically inherited the property of the parent layout, which was read only, and all these code views are now read only. That's the meaning of same as parent. If I make the parent layout as none, then you will not be able to see any of the code views which you have kept inside the layout. Okay, I hope we understood the difference. I mean, sorry, it's clear about the parent and child relationship and what is same as parent. If you have understood, now we'll go to something else here. Now, if I make the parent coach view layout also as same as parent, now in this case, who is the parent of this coach view, right? Basically, what happens whenever you drag, any coach view on the coach, by default, the visibility property of that coach view or the layout becomes same as parent. Now here, who is the parent? Because this layout, I haven't kept inside any other layout. It is just something which I have added from the right hand side directly on the coach. And I can see the property now same as parent. What does this mean? Here the parent of this coach view is the coach. And by default, the visibility property of a coach is editable. I said this today itself. So by default, the visibility property of a coach is editable. Whenever you're adding any coach view, automatically you will be able to edit that coach view. Okay. Now we can go and we can modify them from coming to the visibility property. Like at times we can make it read only, we can make it required, whatever we want, we can do it here. But ideally, whenever you are dragging a coach view, by default it is same as parent. And here the parent will always be the coach. And by default, the visibility property of a coach is editable, which means it is inheriting the property of the coach editable, and we are able to edit this data. Okay, so here you see for the layout I have selected same as parent. Now if I run this, I should be able to edit all this coach views. Okay, I hope we are good. Any questions on any of the visibility properties, guys?
Rahul, I have one query.
Yes.
Consider we have generally we have like three activities.
Mhm.
Like when the request is forwarded from employee one to employee two, and employee two coach is binded with read only, but we
Mhm.
need the data to read from activity two to activity three. So we can read the data even if it is
Yes.
read only, and we can forward it, right?
Yes. Yes. It is just the visibility. I mean, how you show the data to the end users. That is what you are modifying, not the data. So definitely you can proceed with the data flow.
Okay, okay, thank you.
All right, I believe we are good here. Okay. So right now, whatever we wanted to achieve from this manager task, yeah, I mean, we have achieved that. You see, whatever data would come from the employee, like employee ID, employee name, and all these things, they are all in read-only mode. And manager remarks and approve and reject buttons are editable. Okay. Now, what are these things? Value, rule, and script. So value here, if I select value, I can go and manually select any value from here, and that would change the visibility property, that would modify the visibility property of the coach view. What is rule? Rule is basically if you can define some rule. Okay, under some condition, you make it read only, or you make it same as parent, or you make it editable, just like dynamic visibility. So based on some conditions, say for example, say there is a coach view, and you want to show the coach view only to the employee whenever the location is, say, Bangalore. Okay, so you can implement a condition or add a rule over here that uh, set to same as parent, which means you are want to show it, say set to editable whenever, say, employee location equals to, say, Bangalore, otherwise make it none. Okay, so this is a kind of condition you are adding, that you show this particular coach view to the end user only when the employee location is Bangalore, else you are going to hide it from the end user. Okay, this kind of rules can be defined over here. Then comes script. Script is like you can write down some condition like if else you can use. So if tw.local.employee information.employee location is equal to Bangalore, then you define some variable, you have to define some visibility variable, and that variable you will make it sometimes as none, sometimes as readable, whatever be the condition you want to implement. Okay, so these three things are there, but we use none of them. We use only value. Rules we don't use. The reason, because at times it has happened that whatever rules you define, that doesn't work, or that will not work, okay, for some reason. And the script we haven't used much, but yes, whatever you write in the script, we would define it as the dynamic visibility on the human service layer. So going forward, maybe in the next session, whenever we want to learn dynamic visibility, that time I'll show you the same condition which I wrote here just now, and which was talking about to write in the script. We are going to define that in some script, in some client side script on my human service layer. Okay, there is something which we are going to see next in our next session. So by this you can understand one thing, that dynamic visibility is that you are populating the visibility of a coach view based on certain conditions. Like I just defined that when employee location is Bangalore, then in that case you are showing some coach view or you are hiding some coach view. And if it is not Bangalore, you are showing that coach view to the end users. So just the opposite things you are doing based on a condition. This is actually dynamic visibility. Okay, and we define this with the help of some if else statement in our human service layer. Okay, so once again I'll make this as read only, and now that we have understood the visibility, now I'll go back to my variables and I would create another output variable called o employee information. All right, I haven't still completed the human service. Let me complete that, and then we'll come to this explanation why I'm creating another output variable, because manager task is the last task, right? So why would I define again another output variable here? That justification I'll give after we have completed the design of this manager task. We haven't completed yet, okay, because we have to populate that value, right? That if it is approved, then manager action would be approved. If it is a reject, then in that case I have to populate rejected. So that thing we have to implement. Now here you see from the coach, by default some connection is there, some sequence flow is there for approve, and there is one more button. So guys, if you have more than one button, say you have two buttons, so two sequence flows should come out of the coach. If there is only one button, only one sequence flow should come out of the coach. Okay. Now I had only two buttons, so only two sequence flows are coming out. If I try to create one more, you see it is giving me an exclamation mark. It is asking me what other buttons you have in this coach, because I don't find any other buttons. So what is exactly you want to map over here? Okay, so we cannot define any sequence flow from the coach without a button. That cannot be implemented. Okay, or to be more precise, without a boundary event, you cannot implement a sequence flow coming out of the coach. It cannot be done. Okay, so this sequence flow is useless. It doesn't have any meaning at all. Okay, so if you have one button, one sequence flow should come. If you have n number of buttons, n number of sequence flows has to come out of the coach. Okay, always make sure that you have defined the sequence flows properly. Okay, here we don't need an end event right now, we need a script. Populate manager action. First, let's see the code. It's very simple. Only using if else I will define the logic. If pw.local.approve equal to true, then tw.local.employee information dot manager action is equal to else. Rejected. Right? Simple. So whenever approve is true, I'm making the manager actions approved, else I'm making it rejected. Now we need to make sure that they are connected. And then from here we connect to the end event. Okay, and yes, one more thing we'll do, that is we'll assign the whatever we have in the input variable, right guys? We are populating everything in the input variable, right? Whatever is coming to the manager action. So I'll make sure that I also assign the same data to the output variable that we have created. Okay, let me write down that code, then I'll explain why do we need an output variable here. First we need to instantiate, as I am manually populating this variable, not through any UI, but I'm manually populating this. So I need to instantiate the business object first. And then simply directly you can map it. As both the business objects are same, you can map it directly. This way. Right? Now, why did I define an output variable? Anybody has has any answer, any guesses?
Maybe you need to use it to send the information back to the uh, employee regarding his approve or reject status.
That is a requirement. Like if I had that requirement, then yes, obviously I would have done that. But in this case, there is no such requirement.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. It is expected that you guys would not be able to answer this because we haven't discussed this in that way. So do you really think, guys, that adding the sequence flow between the employee task and manager task would allow the data to flow between employee and manager? Is it so simple? No. We are just defining a path through a sequence flow that whenever the employee task will be completed, then the manager task will be triggered, right? But there is some property of a user task which we use so that the data can flow between different activities. What is that called? Data mapping. You see here, employee task we had created. If I just go inside the employee task once, if I go to variables, what we created output variable, right? So what is the reason behind this output variable? So that whatever data I'm generating in the employee task, I can pass it to the next component. That is my next activity manager task. That is the main reason why we have created this output variable. If I go back to my process again, if you come to data mapping, you see here we have some output mapping, right? And this variable on the left hand side, which you see, is the variable which we have defined inside the human service as an output variable. And the variable which you see on the right hand side is actually the variable that we created in the process. So do you understand the significance of this variable now? The significance of this variable is it acts as a medium between the different activities in a process. So basically it is carrying out the information from the employee to the manager. We are actually updating this variable every time we are completing an activity. Whenever I'm completing employee activity, the data that I'm generating inside the employee activity, I'm passing it to this employee leave information private variable of my process, and it is again going to again I'm going to map the same variable to the manager task as an input. Why? Because this variable has the latest runtime data of my process. And for the same reason, for the manager task also I am going to create an output variable. The reason I created the output variable is for the same thing, because I want after the manager task is completed, this process variable should be updated with the latest runtime data. There is a manager action, manager remarks, everything should be updated. Why? Because in future, if there is some issue, if there is some error with the code, if this, say for example, after the manager clicks on approve or reject, then you have another activity, or say you don't have any other activity, right? Now suddenly it fails. So I will have the latest data on my process variable also, because this is the variable which will be using to inspect any error, okay, at runtime. So talked about process inspector, right? So whenever, in production, if some instance is failing, if any case is failing, then it is the process inspector through which we try to find out why the error has come. And what we can see in the inspector, we can see all the data, whatever variables are there. We'll see it today. For the development environment, we'll see today right now, because after we complete this, we'll run the process and see. So that time we'll see all those things. Okay, so I believe we can understand. Let me just map the human service first. Manager task cshs. Now if I go to data mapping now, guys, you can see we have both input and output mapping. So either you can write down the variable name here like tw.local like this. Okay, this way also you can just write down the variable name, or you can also use this variable picker. Okay, this is called a variable picker. If you click on it, it will show you that what variable you want to map. Okay, so I will click on it. Okay, similarly output mapping also I will do. So what would happen, guys? Whatever information I have in the manager, now I'm updating the manager remarks, and approve and reject also will be mapped with the manager action. So whatever data I am populating in the manager task, I'm updating the same data to my process variable also, so that anytime if I want to find out what data we had, even if it doesn't fail, even if it is completed successfully, in future I can go, right? I want to go and check the data what has been populated. So if it is updated properly to my process variables, I can see it easily from the inspector, else I will not be able to see it. Okay, so we'll run the process now. And there are few important components about the process which we have to discuss, which we need to understand. And then only we'll proceed with the other sessions like dynamic visibility, validation, data change. All these things we'll cover next. Okay. Now, this is a process which we have created, and if I have to test the process, if I have to run the process and see that whether everything is working properly or not, then you see at the top right corner, you have a run button. If I click on this button, this process will be triggered. Okay. And what will be created? Any idea? What will be created for this process?
I think an instance will be created.
Correct. What is an instance, guys?
It's an object which holds this information, and it will give the activity flow. We get instance ID and everything with that.
Right. Not an object exactly, but yes. Any other guesses? What is an instance? It's a kind of case, right, that we create. So if I am an employee of an organization, if I am applying for a leave, then this process will be triggered, an instance will be created or a case will be created for me. Similarly, if Anoop applies for a leave, then an instance will be created for him, right? And each instance is unique. Each instance will hold unique data, right? For whenever I am applying for a leave, it will hold my data because I am applying for a sick leave. My employee ID is unique, my name is unique, and when Anup will apply for a leave, his details will be completely different from mine. He will have a separate employee ID, a separate employee name. Maybe the leave type will also be different. Maybe the reason will be different. Start date, end date will be different, right? So each instance in a process, whenever you trigger a process, an instance is created, and each instance is unique from each other. Each instance will hold some runtime data, which is basically this variable which we create. Whatever variables, guys, you create on the process layer, that is used to store some runtime data of your process. Okay, that can be an input variable, that can be some output variable, that can also be some private variable. That can never be an EPV or ENV. I hope you understand why they cannot hold the runtime data, because they can hold only constant data or static data. But apart from this two, the other variables, whatever you create, input, output, or private, these are all your process variables, and they can hold the runtime data of your process at any point of time, right? So let's see. We'll trigger the process now. We'll click on run, and before I click on run, one more thing. Process designer is divided into two parts. Okay, one is the designer view where you do the development, and the other is the inspector view where you test your application. If you have seen the architecture session, that time it was said in the process designer that it's an authoring environment which is used to create and test applications, right? So designer is used for development or authoring, and inspector is used for testing. Okay, whenever I'll trigger this process, automatically it will take me to the inspector view, right? Let's see. Now I am in the inspector view of my process designer, and I would be able to see that an instance will be created, and I can see, first of all, let's forget about the right hand side. Let's see the diagram first. Okay, what we can see here, we can see employee task. There is some balloon like structure on top of the employee task right now, which clearly resembles that this employee task has been triggered. And we see this balloon like structure at the top, which actually indicates this, that this is right now active. A task has been created for this user task employee, and we call this as token. Whatever you see on the top of this employee task, this is called token. Okay, and what we see next is hash 4. Here 4 is nothing but the token ID. Okay, these things are important. Okay, for future session, we have a session on REST API and inspector, so that time we'll discuss about this token thing. It is very important, guys. Okay, this token part. Now whenever the employee task will be completed, this token will move forward to the manager task, which will again indicate that the manager task has been triggered. And after the manager is completing the task, the token will move to the end event, and it will complete the instance. Okay, so the token journey has started from the start event. It came to the employee task. Right now it is on top of the employee task, which clearly indicates that the employee task has been triggered and there is a task available for claiming. Okay, now this token, which is number 4, when it will move forward to manage a task, the token number will change. Okay, what it will be exactly, we cannot say it. It can be 5, it can be 6, it can be 7. We don't have any control. We cannot control this token number with the help of any coding. That cannot be done. So it is something which IBM BPM is generating for me, and it is showing me over here. Okay, diagrammatically it's very simple. Now let's come to the right hand side. What we see at the top, we see something called leave application process colon 353. Okay, what do we call this? We call this as the instance name, the name of the instance. And here the name of the instance is defined by the name of the process colon instance ID. 353 is the instance ID of this process. Okay, whenever I triggered this process, an instance was created and the instance ID is 353. 353 is unique. When again I'll create a new instance, again a new instance ID will generate, say 354. Okay, again this generation, guys, 353, 354, what would be the next value? We cannot control that. Okay, so without with any coding or with using any kind of APIs, we cannot control on the number, on the value. Okay, but yes, we can get the instance ID at any point of time in my process or in my human service with the help of certain system variables. Okay, now where do we define this instance name? Can this be changed? Yes, it can be changed. By default, whenever you create a process, the instance name is created. If you want to change it, I can change it easily. How? By going to the overview of the process. You see here there are multiple sections, and there is one section called details. And in the details, we have the first value called instance name, where we can see leave application process is within double quotes, then we have a colon, then we have a plus sign, and then we have some system variable. Like I was telling you, this system variable will give me the instance ID of the current process. Okay, whenever an instance is created, that instance ID I can get it from this variable. Even this variable you can use it in any script. Okay, so I'll just give an example where you can use, say you are logging something, right? So you log it in a way that for every instance ID you have a log, right? So in those cases we use this instance, this particular system variable for logging purpose, be it your exception handling loggers or your normal happy path loggers. Everything you can use, or everything you can implement using this system variable. Other things are there, we'll discuss everything, don't worry. Work schedule, exposing, team, advanced, everything we'll discuss. So we'll have sessions on every topic. Say for example, when we discuss about process portal, that time we'll discuss about exposing. Okay, when we discuss about events, that time we'll discuss about work schedule. So like this we're going to cover. Coming back to the inspector view, so I believe now we are clear. What is this? This is my instance name. Now we come to this details section. Okay, what do we have in the details section? The first thing we have is the instance ID. What is the name of the instance? Sorry, what is the instance ID? That is 353. Then we have the name of the process application. It is leave application. Status means here status of the instance. Here the status of the instance is active. There are different states of an instance. Okay, states or status, whatever you call. So one is active. Whenever an instance is created, whenever the tasks are active, if all the tasks are complete, then the instance will be completed. But till the time some of the tasks are still active, the instance will be active. Okay, once all the tasks are completed, the instance will also be completed, so the status for that instance will be completed. At any point of time in your instance, if some error comes, right, Say the employee task fails, what would happen with the state of the instance? It will be changed to failed. So active, completed, failed. These three things are the most important, which you're going to see in your entire journey of IBM BPM. Okay, when you work for production, when you are doing any development, when you're doing any kind of testing in the staging environment, every time these three states you will always deal with. Instance fails, you have to go and retry the instance. It will again become active. After you complete all the tasks, the instances will be completed. So these three things, these three states are very important for us. Apart from this, also we have another state. Okay, for that let us go back to our process. Say this process has been deployed, this application has been deployed to say UAT environment. Okay, now the testers are doing the testing, so we have like two testers in the team, and say one of them created one instance and the other person also created another instance to test this scenario. The first person, whenever he completed the employee task and submitted it, it went to the manager, and whenever he or she tried to claim the manager task, the entire instance failed. Okay, because there is some issue with the manager task, maybe some kind of syntax issue, some code issues there, and that is the reason why the entire instance failed. So as a developer, I need to rectify the instance, right? I need to sorry, I need to go back and rectify my code. I need to fix the bug, whatever is it. Then I need to deploy it, and then I have to retry the instance which is failed. Now the other person, who is the other tester, he is about to complete the employee task. Okay, maybe he has claimed the employee task and he's filling up the application form, and he is not aware that some issue is there in the manager task. But I'm a developer, I know that the other user, other tester has complained, right? So what I can do, I can go back to my process inspector and I can suspend the instance. The instance which is still active, which has not failed, I will suspend it. What will happen if I suspend an instance? If there are any tasks created, nobody would be able to claim that task. Nobody would be able, if anybody has already claimed the task also, nobody will be able to submit that task, which means I'm suspending that instance at that point of time. And what would, what help I would get it from here? The instance will not fail until and unless I fix it, until and unless I deploy my fix to UAT, that instance will be in a suspended state. Because by mistake, the UAT who is doing the testing, he might submit the employee task and again he can go and claim the manager task. And again, that will again, fail the instance. So instead of failing the instance, I can suspend it. And once I fix the code and deploy it, I can again resume that instance. And I can again tell the testing tester that, I have resumed that instance, you can move ahead. You can go on and you can do the testing. Okay, and from where we can suspend the instance, it is process inspector. From where we can suspend an instance and we can resume it, we'll see it whenever we have a session on process inspector. And if it's a designer, say you are doing the testing by yourself and you are thinking that, I want to suspend this instance right now, how can we do it? Very simple. You see at the top we have on the right hand side palette we have few buttons here, and this is the button which says suspend. If I click on suspend, right now nobody will be able to work on any task which is active. Okay, until and unless I resume it, nobody will be able to work on any task. You see, this is the task, this is the task which is active, employee task. Next to it there should be some button to claim the task over here, but that button is only not appearing. It is completely disabled, rather just completely disappeared. So I cannot work on this task anymore. If I once again resume the task, you see this button again says resume. If I again resume this instance, now suddenly this button appeared, which means I can again claim this particular employee task. Okay, so whenever you suspend an instance, the state of an instance changes to suspended. Okay, so we have active, completed, failed, and suspended. Okay, what do we have? Anything more? Yes, we have something else as well, that is called terminated. Whenever you terminate an instance, the state of the instance changes to terminated. Okay, so this means we have, for the theoretical things, all these things, to understand the different states properly. There is one book which I would suggest, Colburn. I know it's an old book. 2014 was the last edition, but there is something which is, has everything on IBM BPM. Okay, from from the scratch, right from what is a course till what is an event, everything is there. So download that book. It's there in the internet for free. Any point of time, if you think that you need to understand some theoretical things, then you can always refer to that book. Okay, till the time we are having the sessions, it's fine, you can ask me. But in case our sessions are done, then in that case, at any point of time in your career, if you want to understand something on IBM BPM, then you can always refer that book. Okay, it's Coleman. I hope everybody knows who is Neil Coleman. We should know who is Neil Coleman.
Yeah.
Any idea who is Neil Coleman? Okay, all right. Okay, just one thing. This UI toolkit which you are seeing, UI toolkit, right? This UI toolkit has been developed by Neil Coleman. Many of you are not aware. If you're not aware, then Neil Coleman was a person who used to work with IBM initially and for a very long time. And he is one of the considered he's one of the person who developed this product when it was Lombardy. And he know every nooks and corners of this product. And there are videos, you can refer to his videos. There are few videos of him which are there, which are available for free. So you can refer to them. He's considered to be an IBM BPM expert, and then he left IBM almost like 3 4 years back, and then he joined Spark Industries, I believe. Spark, oh yeah. So Spark, basically what they do, they used to develop the different toolkits for IBM BPM. Okay. They have their own Angular team who develops different coach views, different dashboards for IBM BPM. And initially, like I was stating, that we used to use the toolkit called responsive coaches, right? So Coleman, he had developed his own toolkit called Coleman toolkit, which we used to use in the older versions of IBM BPM. And that had all those, new features like Google Map, everything was there, type ahead, all those things. But when he went to this organization Spark, over there he developed with a team over there, he developed something called Spark UI Toolkit. And he showcased this to IBM. IBM was impressed so much that what they did from the next version, they used this toolkit directly in IBM BPM. So we don't have to download that from the internet, and we don't have to import it. Whenever you purchase a license of IBM BPM or BAW, you get it for free. So that is the thing. So in 8.5.7, we had the name of the toolkit as Spark UI Toolkit. Now it has been written to UI Toolkit. Okay. So most of the code views that we are using, most of them has been developed either by him or by his team. Okay. So that is the thing. All right. Now we see start time. Start time basically indicates when this instance has started. Last action is when if I go and claim this task right now and work on it, and if I complete it, whenever I complete this task, that time will be updated as last action. Whenever the manager will complete the task, right, then the last action will again be changed to the manager whenever he completed this task. Due date. Every instance has a due date. Okay, whatever instance we are creating, okay, whatever cases we are creating, everything should have some due date. Okay, so if I'm creating an instance right now, then I can have a due date like 30 days from now. Okay, so how do we define it? Where can we define it? Again, if I go to the overview of the process, we have something called enable due date, which is a checkbox. So always by default it is enabled. And then we have something called due in. So here it's showing us 8 hours. So by default, whenever you create a process, 8 hours is defined from before. If you want to change it, I can change it at any point of time. So I can make it as 30, and here is a drop down. I can make it 30 days. So this way you can change your due date from here. You see, the good thing about, you also have a variable picker, which means you can also make it dynamic. Okay, you can do some calculations. So whenever the process is created, or sorry, whenever the instance is created of a process, automatically you captured that system date, right? And from there you can add like 30 days or 45 days, whatever you want to, and you can put that in a variable, and that variable you can map it over here. What kind of variable I can map? Date type of variable I can map. Okay, so that way we can also make it dynamic. Next, what we have tasks. So this detail section is done. I believe that's very simple. And next we have tasks. So tasks, this section will show you like which task is created right now, which is active task right now. When employee task will be completed, whenever the token will move forward to manager task, it will show me here that employee task is completed by whom, and then the manager task is active. Okay. And guys, what we have, see next to every task, okay, employee task right now, we can see something called 303. This 303 is nothing but the task ID. Like we have the instance ID of an instance, similarly we have the task ID of a task. This is the task ID 303. Okay, it says the task is assigned to all users. It is due in 49 minutes. So even your task also has a due date. Okay, every task will have some due date. So whenever you are defining the process instance due date, that way your task also automatically it will also get updated. Okay, so like we have two tasks, so it should be completed within say 2 hours from now. Okay, and also we can change the due date from our code, and also we can change the due date from process inspector. So if your customer or client comes to you and tells you that, hey, for this customer, I need to change the due date. So maybe he's on a vacation, something like that. So please change the due date of this customer to say maybe next 5th of the next month. So you can go to the process inspector, and from there you can manually change the due date for that particular instance. Or you can also take the help of REST API. From there also you can change the due date. Okay, how to change it, we'll see it later. We have sessions on that. That time we'll see. Right. Next, what we have, location. Locations shows you the location of the token. So right now the token is on employee task, so it is showing me the employee task over here. Whenever it will move forward to the manager task, it will show me the manager task over here under location. Okay, data, exactly what I was talking about. So this variable we basically will show you the runtime data of your process. This is basically the private variable that you have defined. So whenever employee task will be submitted, this variable will have some data. Right now it is null, it doesn't have any value, it is empty. Okay, so whenever I'll submit the employee task, this variable will be updated with the runtime data, so that I will show you what data it has. Okay, next we have evaluator. At any point of time, if you want to find out the value of any variable that you are using in this process, you can just write down ctw.local.employee information dot say employee ID. Right now if I run it, I should not get any result. It is throwing me some error. Why? Because this process has just been triggered. I haven't even put any value. I haven't accessed this employee task. I haven't filled up that application form. So right now employee ID is empty. So it threw some warning. Okay, that cannot read employee ID from undefined. So I hope we are good with the right hand side. Now let's complete this process. This instance, let me claim the employee task. So I use the run button next to the employee task, that play button basically, and I would fill up this form, say EMP 201. Type of leave, say is casual leave. Start date say is say 24th. and 28th vacation. Okay, that's all about the details. So I'll click on apply. This would complete the employee task, and now the token should move forward to the manager task, and I can see the token has moved forward and the token number has changed to 6, right? That the instance is still active, right? Because because the task is still active there, so the instance will be active. And the last action has changed, so it was 9:03 first, now it is 9:24 a.m. And what else has changed in the task? I can see employee task was closed by Rahul, and manager task is active right now. I see this play button over here, and the task is assigned again to all users. It is due in 60 minutes. Now next to this play button, guys, here we have something, another button called debug. So if you want to debug this task, you can also debug it. Say that will show you how your code is getting executed, how the scripts are getting executed. So especially we do this whenever some error is there, and I want to find out where the error is. That time you can use the debug method or mechanism. Okay, location. Now you can see the location is showing me manager, right? Because the token has now moved forward. And if I scroll down, now we have something in this data, guys. Okay, let me expand it. You see, it is populated with some value. Whatever we have entered in that particular coach, everything is now populated. Employee ID is populated. Type of leave is populated. You see, name and value. We have 3 items: sick leave, privilege leave, and casual leave. What is selected leave? I selected casual leave. This was the end date. Employee name I added is Rahul. Okay, reason of leave I did not put anything. Okay, maybe I had put because I did not map that parameter. This is called data issue. Okay, so mapping was not done, and since mapping was not done with any variable, you see the mapping is not there, so the value did not come here. Okay, so we'll map it with reason of leave. So reason of leave is empty over here. That's it. Let me run the process again. For a new instance, I'm again creating a new instance so that let me why I'm running this human service. Let me run the process. Okay. Now the instance ID is 354. Let me claim this employee task. Apply. And now if I go to data, I should have all the data now. So I see my employee ID, type of leave is populated, selected leave is populated, end date, EMP name, reason of leave has also come. Employee location we are not using, that is the reason it is empty. Start date we are using, it is there. And manager remarks and manager action is empty. Obviously it should be empty because we haven't yet completed the manager task. So now let's complete the manager task. So I see all the details has come. It's in read-only mode, and I cannot change anything over here. Now the manager will add his remarks. Say approved. Click on approve. This would complete this task. And now if I see the right hand side, why the data is completely empty? 354. Okay, instance is completed, but somehow the data is not updated here. Why is that? Okay, let's go inside the human service once. Let's see what code we have written. tw.local.o employee information is equal to, we are initializing it. Okay, that's fine. Oh, see, is the reason. Okay, so that is the reason it did not get updated. So it was wrong here. It should have been this variable. So what we are doing, we are just copying it in the same variable so that somehow nullified the entire data. That is the wrong code basically. Okay. So let's see for the last time. Employee task 001 Rahul sick leave start date 15th of February to 17th of February fever. Manager task is active, we'll claim it. Now we should have something in the data. Yes, we have. Okay, what we see in the manager action and remarks, you see manager remarks is approved. That is what he added in the text area, and manager action we are populating that script, so it is also approved. Okay, and the rest details are also updated. Right, so that's how you trigger an instance manually and you test it, and you use the inspector view to find out how the flow is happening, how the data flow is also happening, how the data is getting updated to your runtime variables. And most importantly, the other things that we are also seeing here is the token. How is it moving? What is the token ID? And this token ID, this concept is important because in future, when we will work on the cleanup items, especially when you do a deployment, that time you do some cleanup from the last release. Some instances failed, so at times we need to do some cleanup. And move token is one of the most common cleanup technique that we use, where we have to move the token backwards. Say the instance has failed in the manager task. Okay, and somehow even if you're retrying, say you have fixed the code and you've deployed the code, but still the instance is failed in the failed state. I cannot reactivate that instance once again. So at times what we do, we refresh it, we try to move the token backward to the employee task and again move it forward. Or if some task or in some task something has failed and that had failed the entire instance, and at times what we do, we move the token forward because maybe that task is not required. At least for that instance we can leave that task, so we can move it forward. So moving backward and forward can be done through REST API. Move token mechanism can be used to move the token backward or forward. Okay, so all good. Any questions we have, any doubts we have for today's session?
One question, Rahul. So can you like quickly walk through the concept of sequential flow once more?
Sequential flow, or you're talking about data mapping?
Yeah. So if that's what you're referring to sequential flow, yeah.
Yeah, so data mapping here is important because whatever I am, whenever I'm working on employee task as an employee, whenever I'm populating or processing some data on that task, so I need to make sure that the data should flow to the next activity. Now the
Yeah.
thing is that automatically it will not happen. So if I connect the sequence flows, yes, with the help of sequence flow, I'm defining the path, that this will be the path. Basically, this is the happy path. Like if
Okay.
everything goes right, then it will follow this path. Okay, but if I
Okay.
have to make sure that if the data has to flow between these activities, and here guys we have just implemented user task, it can also be say, some system activity where you have to do some data mapping, right?
Okay.
So if I have to make sure that the data should flow from employee to manager, I have to map the input and output variables with some process variable or private variables like we're using here. So this is my private variable, employee leave information,
Mhm.
and I am mapping it here so that this variable can take the data from the employee task forward to the manager task. And
Yeah.
again, after when the manager task is completing, although it's the last task, I am still updating with the runtime data on my process variable. Okay,
Okay.
that's how we are doing it.
Makes sense.
Rahul, I have a question. This is related to the due date time. So, is it for the all the instances of the process, or it's
Yes.
specific to a task process instance?
No, it is generic. It will be same for all the processes.
Okay. And if once I deploy and if I want to change, do I need to redeploy, or is there any way to directly?
You can manually change it for, but that would happen only for some instance if you want to change. So that would happen in that way. But if you want to do in this way, that after deployment, you want to change, like every instance till
Yes.
now was having a due date 30 days. Now you want to make it 45.
Yes.
So for that, you cannot do it after
Okay.
deployment. That you have to do while doing the development.
Again, one more deployment. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. One more question.
Yes.
How easy is to search? Just now you gave an example where one person said that, can you change the due date of this instance?
Hmm.
So will they have the instance ID, or how will
Yes.
they will have
Yes,
instance?
they will have the instance ID. So you have to go to inspector and search for the instance ID. You will get it easily. So I'll just share it here. So from the designer also I can go to process inspector. Okay, so here you see the search bar. You click on it. This would take you to process inspector. We'll not discuss everything over here because we have a separate session on this. But like we were seeing that if I want to find out an instance, say 353, then I can just type here 353 in the search bar on the left, enter it, you get the instance. On the right hand side, you get the same details again. Okay, that's your process inspector. Searching is easy. No worries.
So one question, Rahul. So is it advisable that we in our application
Mhm.
we we keep this instance ID also visible at some place, so that end user, if they have any issue with particular
Hmm.
instance, they can share the instance ID and then we can patch or something? So how it
Yeah, I
works real
mean,
time?
yeah. So for a developer, if you have to identify the instance ID, definitely the only way is log, right? Like I was telling that whenever you're logging something at any point of time in your process, so you have to define the loggers in a way that you print the instance ID every time you log in. So we have the system variables, TW system dot current process instance dot ID. So a lot of variables are there which will give you the instance ID. Even task ID also you can get. So it's very easy. I mean, using the logs you can define, and you can search in the logs and find out what has happened to the activity or process for that
Okay.
instance.
Yeah. Thank you.
Rahul, I have a small query. We have a debug option here. So can we have breakpoints also within a script? Is it like possible?
What pipe? Can you come again?
Breakpoints. I mean, generally when we debug it, when we run the code,
Hmm.
so it
Okay,
will.
breakpoints.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, breakpoints.
breakpoints. No, we cannot have breakpoints here.
Okay.
Each step you can see. So in a process, if you have like five activities, so each will be considered as a step. So that way it will debug. But inside an activity, we cannot define a breakpoint.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I will share this document today. After session is done, now I'll share it. And what else? Okay, we are good.
Rahul, one more thing.
Yes.
Like we are not getting the recording videos. These videos.
Mm-hmm.
If we get on the same day, at least we can practice on this.
They have sent, Rahul. Just I saw they sent the last two videos also.
Yeah, today they sent it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
today only they sent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me check with them. And what about Jay? Did you get any recording? The first two videos?
Yeah, I got the three recording videos.
Three recordings you got.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just watch for Monday. If Monday after the session you do not get the video, let me know. I'll talk to the organizer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. Do practice. At least in your BW trial, you can do the practice even if you haven't installed it. So whatever we have done, at least I mean, it's expected that by Monday you should be able to complete everything whatever we have done. And by the end of next week, I believe we are completing 50%, and I'll be providing a use case which you have to showcase me on the next to next week. Okay, so each one has to give me a demo.
Sure.
Rahul,
Yes,
will we be touching themes also?
it's an optional thing. I mean, if you want to touch base, I mean, if you want to have a session on that, we can have. No issue.
Normally, in your experience, have you used any specific themes, or you are using the default ones so far?
We are using default ones, so
Okay, okay, then
we are
it's
not
okay. Then it's okay.
yes.
Rahul, one question. So,
Yes,
would we be covering the different services like Ajax services,
yes, yes.
system services, and
Everything,
integrations and everything?
everything will cover.
Okay, sounds good.
See, the thing is that I'm more into process, okay, rather
Yeah.
than coaches and all those things. Because I work on a headless project at the moment. So I work for Morgan Stanley, and that's a complete headless project where we don't have any UI from the BPM side. And previously, I worked in various banking projects where we have used the UI part, BPM codes, but again, theme we haven't implemented. But these things like layouts, how to create layouts, how to configure them in the code, so all these things we have implemented. Sessions. Theme is very simple. I mean, you can sit any day by your own. You can just see and you can change the background color to some particular color. You can change the font size. You can change the font. All these things. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay then. So if you don't have any doubts or queries, we can close it here. Have a good weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you. Wish you safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.